Ever feel like you're building something amazing, putting in all the hours, but launching it feels like, well, like shouting into a void.
Yeah, totally.
Or maybe just the idea of constantly having to like promote yourself makes you cringe.
Oh, definitely. That constant self-promotion grind.
Well, today, let's maybe forget that relentless approach for a bit. We're diving into something different, a way to connect with people that's more about simply, well, showing your work.
That's exactly it. We're digging into Austin Kleon's ideas,
Mm.
especially from his book, Show Your Work.
Mm.
And it really is a refreshing take, isn't it? It feels much more natural,
Yeah.
less like you're desperately trying to get attention in this super crowded world.
Okay, so for this deep dive, our mission is kind of threefold. First, what problem does this show your work idea actually solve? Like, what's the pain point?
Right.
Second, what are the really key ideas, the core principles,
Yeah.
And let's get some concrete examples in there.
Good idea. Yeah.
And then finally, how can we actually use this? How does it apply if we're, say, marketing something or, trying to build our own business?
Exactly. Sounds like a plan. So let's start with that first one. What's the problem Show Your Work is trying to fix?
Well, the big one, the immediate one, is just getting noticed, right? It's such a battle for attention out there. Creatives, entrepreneurs, small businesses, everyone's vying for eyeballs.
It's noisy, incredibly noisy. And making your work actually cut through and connect with people, that can feel almost impossible sometimes.
Yeah, and the traditional advice often feels a bit, well, icky, doesn't it?
Icky's a good word for it. Yeah, those forced networking things or that constant, like, look at me stuff on social media.
Yeah.
Cleon really gets that discomfort, that
Yeah.
feeling that there has to be a better way.
It's like we're stuck on this old myth of the lone genius working away in secret.
Mm-hmm. In their ivory tower.
And then bam, they unveil this perfect masterpiece. But show your work kind of blows that whole concept up, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the internet changed everything. It's not just about being good anymore. You also have to be findable, discoverable.
Ah, okay. So it builds on that Steve Martin idea. Be so good they can't ignore you.
Exactly. Cleon adds a crucial layer. Even if you are that good, people still need a way to actually find you. Being brilliant isn't enough if no one knows you exist.
Right. So it's less about like pushing your way into the spotlight at some big event
Yeah, less elbowing.
and more about using the network, the connections you already have or can build just by being open about what you're actually doing.
Precisely. It's a shift. From that aggressive networking mindset to more strategically taking advantage of the network by just sharing authentically.
Okay.
And Cleon mentions, people constantly ask him about self-promotion. How do I get seen? Where's my audience?
Mm-hmm.
Show your work
Yeah.
is basically his answer for all those people who just instinctively pull back from the usual hype.
Got it. So the core problem is that struggle for real visibility, the
Yeah.
discomfort with old school promotion and needing to be findable, not just great.
Yeah.
So what are the actual solutions? What are Cleon's key ideas?
Well, the first one is just wonderfully liberating, I think. You don't have to be a genius,
Oh, I like the sound of that. Takes the pressure off immediately.
doesn't it? He brings in this concept of scenius, which was coined by Brian Eno.
Scenius, Scenius.
That's the one. Think of it like the collective intelligence, the creativity of a whole scene or a network. It's where people feed off each other, share ideas, build on each other's work.
Ah, okay. So it's less about being the singular genius
Right.
and more about being part of something bigger, contributing to a community.
Exactly. You're adding to this collaborative ecosystem and the internet. It's basically just this massive collection of potential geniuses, right? Blogs, forums, social media.
Mm-hmm.
They're all places where these connections happen.
Makes sense.
And interestingly, within these scenes, being an amateur or having that amateur spirit can actually be a huge advantage.
Really? How so?
Well, think about Charlie Chaplin's quote. That's all any of us are. Amateurs. We don't live long enough to be anything else.
Huh. That's a great way to put it.
It highlights that willingness amateurs often have. They're eager to experiment. They're learning out loud. They'll share mistakes. They don't have this expert image to protect so fiercely.
Right. They're less afraid of looking silly or getting it wrong.
Exactly. And Clay Shirky had this great point, something like, the stupidest possible creative act is still a creative act. The real hurdle isn't being brilliant. It's the gap between doing nothing and doing something.
Just starting. Just putting something out there.
Yeah. And sometimes that beginner's mind is actually incredibly valuable. C.S. Lewis pointed out how school kids often explain things better to each other than a master because they just recently figured it out themselves. They remember the struggle.
That's so true. The expert might have forgotten what it felt like to not know.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And there's an energy in that raw enthusiasm. Bernard Sumner from New Order, he said seeing the Sex Pistols, who he didn't even think were very good musicians, technically, that actually inspired him to just get up and try making music himself.
Yeah.
Their raw energy was infectious, even if it wasn't polished.
Wow. So that amateur spirit isn't just for beginners. Even pros can tap into it.
Kleon thinks so. He mentions Tom York from Radiohead, deliberately picking up instruments he wasn't familiar with just to shake up his process.
To keep things fresh.
Exactly. So the core idea here is focus on learning in public. Share your process. Contribute where you see a gap, even if it's not perfect. Don't wait until you're a master.
Okay, great first principle. What's next?
The second one is another big mindset shift. Think process, not product.
Right. This goes against how a lot of us are wired, always focused on that final thing, the deliverable.
Totally. Kleon makes this distinction between the finished artwork, the noun, and the ongoing artwork, the verb, the daily grind, the journey.
And traditionally, artists were kind of told to keep that process hidden, right? Like it was some kind of secret sauce.
Yeah, exactly. David Bales and Ted Orland talk about that in Art and Fear. Keep the mystery alive.
But the internet just changes that whole dynamic. Sharing the behind the scenes is so easy now, low cost, potentially huge reach.
Absolutely. You can share sketches, drafts, photos of your workspace, write about your inspirations. It's all shareable material. Kleon digs up this quote from Edgar Allan Poe way back in 1846, talking about how writers like to maintain this illusion of fine frenzy rather than show the nuts and bolts.
The messy reality.
But people are actually really curious about that messy reality. Dan Provost and Tom Gerhardt put it perfectly. People really do want to see how the sausage gets made. Sharing the process lets people connect with the person behind the work.
Like astronaut Chris Hadfield. That's a fantastic example.
Isn't it? His popularity wasn't just about wow space. It was him tweeting photos, making videos about brushing his teeth in zero-G, playing guitar, the everyday stuff.
It made something extraordinary feel relatable and human.
Exactly. And even if your work isn't, orbiting the Earth.
Right. Maybe slightly less visually dramatic.
Kleon stresses just documenting your process. Keep a journal, snap photos, take short videos. Even if you don't share at all, it's valuable for you, and it gives you material to share later. Like the journalist David Carr said, you just have to make stuff, and people want to see what you made.
Okay, so think process, share the journey. Leads nicely into the third principle.
It does. Share something small every day.
The consistency piece. This fights against that idea of needing some huge polished reveal before you share anything.
Totally. That overnight success thing, mostly a myth. Real progress comes from chipping away consistently. Kleon suggests focusing on the day as your unit of time. It's manageable.
So after you do your main work for the day, just take a moment, look back.
Yeah, and find one small thing, something interesting from your process. Could be an influence you discovered, a technique you tried, a little snippet of work in progress, maybe even a finished bit, or a story about an interaction. Anything small.
And this forms like a daily dispatch.
That's his term, yeah. And he argues it's actually more valuable than a static resume or portfolio.
Why? Because it's current.
Exactly. It shows what you're actually doing, what you're engaged with right now. He mentions Zay Frank, the artist, saying he'd rather see a job applicant's recent personal blog posts than their old school projects.
Like the DVD extras for your life's work?
Kind of. Yeah, a little behind-the-scenes look.
And
the format doesn't really matter. Blog post, email, tweet, quick video, whatever fits.
So pick the platforms where your people hang out.
Right. Where does your field congregate? Filmmakers on YouTube or Vimeo, business types on LinkedIn, writers maybe on Twitter or Substack, visual artists on Instagram.
And don't be afraid to mix it up, like Tommy Edison, the blind film critic you mentioned, using Instagram.
Exactly. Such a creative use of the platform. Kleon offers a simple prompt for social media. Just answer the question, what are you working on?
Takes the pressure off being profound every single time.
Totally. And remember, not everything needs to be gold. That's Sturgeon's law. Quote, 90% of everything is crap. It applies to our daily shares, too. The value is in putting it out there consistently, getting feedback, seeing what lands.
Finding those little pockets of time to do it.
Commute, lunch break, end of the day. But, and this is important, Kleon warns, don't let the sharing become the work. Don't let it take over. It's about balance.
Got it. Okay, number 4 sounds interesting. Open up your cabinet of curiosities. What's that about?
It goes beyond just your direct work. He connects it to those old Wonder Camera cabinets of curiosities from history.
Right, where people displayed weird and wonderful objects they'd collected.
Exactly. To show off their knowledge, their interests. Kleon says we all have our own versions. The books we read, the music we love, the articles we save, our weird little hobbies.
Our digital bookmarks, our saved Instagram posts.
All of it. And sharing this stuff, your tastes, your influences, it helps people understand who you are and what informs your work, sometimes more than the work itself.
So it's about revealing your inputs, not just your outputs.
Precisely. There's often a blur between collecting and creating anyway. Jonathan Litham calls himself a curator. DJ Spooky said, "You're only as good as your record collection."
And Dave Grohl's line about no guilty pleasures.
If you've ever liked something, like it. Yeah. Own your influences, don't overthink it, or edit yourself too much, even if it seems random, like that guy Nelson Molina's Trash Museum in NYC, finding treasure in what others discard.
Okay, but there's a key piece here.
Yeah.
Giving credit.
Absolutely vital. When you share someone else's work or an idea they inspired, give credit. It helps them, obviously, but it also helps your audience by giving them context and paths to explore further.
Use the hyperlink.
The hyperlink is your best friend online. Kleon's rule is simple. If you can't credit it properly, maybe don't share it.
Makes sense. Principle number 5, tell good stories. This feels crucial.
Oh, absolutely. He uses that great anecdote about the two identical paintings of a harbor sunset. Their value completely changes once you know the story. One's an original, one's a fake.
Context is everything.
It really is. And that Significant Objects project, where they took cheap thrift store junk, wrote compelling fictional stories about each item, and then sold them on eBay.
And the value skyrocketed.
Dramatically. It
Yeah.
just proves his point. Your work doesn't speak for itself. The stories you tell around your work. That's what shapes how people feel about it, how they value it.
People connect with stories.
They do. Rachel Sussman talks about how personal stories make complex things relatable. Kleon argues you're already telling a story with everything you put online, so you might as well get better at it, be more intentional.
Learn the craft of storytelling.
Yeah. Even basic structure helps. John le Carré's line, "The cat sat on the mat" isn't a story. "The cat sat on the dog's mat" is a story. Something has to happen.
Conflict, change.
Right. Kleon mentions basic structures, the 3-act structure, Aristotle's beginning, middle, end, even John Gardner's simple plot. Character wants something, faces obstacles, tries to overcome them. That last one fits the creative process perfectly, doesn't it?
It really does.
And you can tell stories even when you're mid-process. Open-ended ones. Share the struggle. Even a pitch can be a story. Past, present, future. Invite people into that future.
And the basics still apply. Clear language, respect the audience's time, be brief, use spell check.
Please use spell check, yeah.
Yeah.
Study good stories. Find your own voice. Kanye West said, you gotta make your case. Be ready to explain what you do simply and honestly, whoever you're talking to.
But stick to the truth. No BS.
Definitely. Tell your story with dignity. And keep your bio factual. Avoid those silly buzzwords like ninja or guru.
Right.
As Alison Bechtel said, whatever we say, we're usually talking about ourselves anyway.
Okay, principle 6 feels generous. Teach what you know. Isn't that risky sometimes? Giving away your secrets.
It could feel that way. But Annie Dillard argued, hoarding knowledge is actually destructive. Kleon highlights Aaron Franklin, the barbecue guy in Austin.
Franklin barbecue.
Legendary. And he openly shares his incredibly detailed smoking techniques in a super competitive field.
Why would he do that?
Well, partly because, as he says, knowing the technique doesn't mean you can instantly replicate years of practice and skill. It takes dedication.
Right. Reading the recipe doesn't make you a master chef overnight.
Exactly. And partly, you sense it's just genuine passion. He loves barbecue and wants to share that knowledge. Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansen from Rework actually advise businesses to outteach your competition. Share your recipes.
So think about what parts of your process might actually help or inform your audience.
Yeah. What could you teach them? The minute you learn something, turn around and teach it. Share reading lists, make tutorials, explain your methods. Kathy Sierra's advice is golden. Make people better at something they want to be better at.
And teaching actually adds value to your work, right?
Yeah.
Builds interest, connection.
Definitely. Plus, you get that free education, as Christopher Hitchens called it, from the feedback and questions you receive in return.
Okay, number 7 is a big one for online life. Don't turn into human spam.
We all know this type, right?
The person who only talks about themselves, never listens, just constantly broadcasts.
Exactly. Richard Ford said, when people realize they're being listened to, they tell you things. Kleon talks about writing students who want to be published but never actually read or engage with the writing community.
They want to take but not give back.
Precisely. They haven't paid their dues, they don't care about other people's ideas, they just want to promote themselves. Dan Chaon notes this often leads to rejection, frankly. And even successful people can fall into this trap, becoming totally self-absorbed.
So the alternative is being a good community member.
Yes. Look for collaborators, value different perspectives, like that story of Adrian Young connecting with William Hart from the Delphonics just through a genuine fan interaction on Twitter that led to a collaboration.
Wow, that's cool.
It shows the power of authentic engagement. So the message is, be a fan first. Listen, connect people. Be, as Blake Butler says, an open node. Jeffrey Zeldman emphasizes quality connections over just racking up follower numbers.
Don't waste time trying to game the system.
Right. Focus on being genuinely curious and interested in others. Lawrence Weschler's definition of interesting is being full of interest you project outward. Good connections often just happen naturally if you do good work and talk about things you genuinely love, as Steve Albini suggests.
So the formula is simple. Make stuff you love, talk about stuff you love, and you'll attract people who love that stuff too.
Pretty much. And some quick don'ts. Don't be creepy, don't be a jerk, don't waste time, don't constantly ask for things, and please don't beg for follows.
Kleon also has that vampire test.
Yeah. Inspired by Brancusi avoiding Picasso because Picasso drained him, ask yourself, does interacting with this person leave me energized or depleted? If it's always draining, maybe limit that interaction. Banish the vampires.
Okay, number 8, learn to take a punch. This is about resilience.
It is. Because if you put your work out there, criticism is inevitable. Some good, some bad, some just.
Right.
Nasty.
Right.
Henry Miller said, finding your own kind is part of creating. Kleon uses the analogy of R.A. Dickey, the knuckleball pitcher. Knuckleballers are rare, they face unique challenges, so they form this supportive brotherhood. Find your fellow knuckleballers, your true peers, and nurture those relationships.
But you still need to handle the punches from everyone else.
You do. Kleon offers tips. Relax, breathe. Fear is often just imagination. Strengthen your neck. Put out lots of work. Get used to feedback. Roll with the punches. See critique as data. Protect vulnerable spots, but don't become paralyzed by fear of embarrassment. Keep your balance and resenge. Remember, your work is what you do, not who you are.
And focus on the right criticism.
Yeah, exactly. Brian Michael Bendis' advice. Care what the right people think. Evaluate feedback based on the source. Do they get it? Do they care? And learn to spot trolls people just trying to get a rise out of you. Don't engage.
Kleon had that weird story about getting trolled right after his kid was born.
Yeah, shows how random and nonsensical negativity can be. But often, the worst troll is the one in your own head. His practical advice, use the block button liberally. Delete nasty comments. Don't let that garbage sit there. Maybe even turn comments off entirely sometimes.
Like Natalie D said, paintings in galleries don't have comment sections.
Exactly.
Okay, number 9 is intriguing. Sell out. What's the angle here?
It's a bit playful, acknowledging everyone's kind of an entrepreneur now. There's that funny quote about wanting to sell out but nobody buying.
Oh.
But it touches on a truth. When you try to charge for something you love, you find out pretty quickly how much the market actually values it. The real message, though, seems to be ambitious. Don't be afraid to think bigger. Reach a wider audience. Get paid for your work. Keep busy.
And the final principle, number 10.
Simple, but maybe the hardest. Stick around.
Consistency. Longevity. Showing up day after day, year after year.
That's how you build something lasting. Absolutely crucial.
Okay, so those are the core principles. How does this all translate into, say, marketing or building a business? It seems like a natural fit.
It's incredibly powerful for that, yeah. Think about it. Sharing your process, the behind-the-scenes stuff, that builds trust like nothing else. It connects potential customers to the real people and the real work involved. It humanizes the whole thing.
Yeah, I can see that. Like a restaurant showing how they source ingredients or a tech company blogging about their coding challenges. It feels more authentic than just a slick ad.
Totally. And that daily dispatch idea, it's a perfect way to keep your audience warm, engaged, aware of what you're doing without being pushy or annoying. It's content marketing, really, but rooted in authenticity.
And the cabinet of curiosities. Sharing relevant articles, tools, insights related to your field. That positions you as a knowledgeable resource, right? Attracts the right kind of people.
Exactly. You become a trusted curator for your audience.
Yes.
And telling the story behind your product or service, that adds emotional weight, perceived value, just like with those significant objects. People buy into stories.
And teaching what you know. that builds expertise and loyalty like crazy. If you help people solve their problems, they're going to remember you and trust you.
For sure. Think about businesses that offer great free resources or tutorials. And of course, avoiding that human spam trap is key. Engage genuinely. Listen. Be part of the conversation in your industry. Don't just broadcast.
And be ready for feedback, even negative feedback, and use it to get better.
See it as data. Overall, consistently showing your work in this way build a much more sustainable, resilient brand or business over the long term. It's about creating real connections.
And owning your own space, like Kleon says, your website or blog. That's home base for all this sharing.
Crucial. Don't build your entire house on rented land like social media alone. Have your own hub.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the big takeaways from Show Your Work. Focus on the process, not just the final product. Share little bits consistently, authentically.
Yeah, open up that cabinet of curiosities. Share your influences, what you're learning.
Tell good stories around your work. Teach what you know generously.
Don't be human spam. Listen, engage, be a good community member.
Learn to handle criticism constructively. Be ambitious
Sell out.
in a good way.
And maybe most importantly, stick around. Be consistent over the long haul.
That's the heart of it. So for everyone listening, here's maybe a little challenge, a takeaway action. Think about just one small thing, really small, you could do today to start showing your work.
Doesn't have to be huge.
Not at all. Share an article you found interesting. Post one photo of something you're tinkering with. Write one sentence about a challenge you faced today. Just one tiny step.
You basically have the blueprints now. The ideas are out there.
Yeah.
It really comes down to, well, stopping hiding your talents, your process, your contributions, doesn't it?
It does.
Because in this world, being invisible, it's increasingly becoming a choice you make. Showing your work isn't about ego. It's about connection, finding your people, making your contribution felt. The tools, the ideas, they're right here. Now, go start building.